back again, finally. It has been about 5 months since I've posted a video, mostly because I just haven't been motivated to do any videos, but I did actually have COVID for about 6 weeks, and though it wasn't severe, I wasn't hospitalized or anything, it was extremely, extremely unpleasant, and I see what all the fuss is about now. I have read about 34 books in the last 5 months. So this might be kind of a long video. I'm going to see how time goes. I might cut it a little bit short. I maybe do like a second one where I include my Kindle Books and audiobooks, because I'm going to start with the physical ones. So the first book is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I buddy read this with Shawn D. Standfast, and I did not like it very much. I do not get along with Peter Blatty's writing style. It was not to my taste at all. And the story, even though it had some really good parts that I did like, for the most part I didn't care for it. I'm going to try to do some individual videos on these books that I've read, because I actually do have quite a lot to say about some of these, including this one. But I'll try to keep it brief in this video because it's bound to be quite long. Let's see, another... Kitty jumped on my lap. Let me start that over. Okay, so then another book I read was Falling by T.J. Newman. This is about some terrorists who hijack a commercial plane, and I loved this book. I thought it was so well done. Really, really enjoyed it. Again, I'll try to do an individual video about this book. Let's see. Then I have started my Star Trek The Next Generation series of books. I've been collecting these over the last 8 or 9 months. I think I have 29 of them now. But the first one, I'm reading them in order. The first one is Ghost Ship. And this one, I have mixed feelings about it. The plot was just silly. I didn't care for the plot at all. However, there were things that I did enjoy. I enjoyed being inside the characters' heads more. There is like a kind of explanation about why Counselor Deanna Troi is on the bridge. We get to see more about how Geordi's visor works, which I also really enjoyed. You don't get that in-depth kind of explanation in the series. However, there was a lot wrong with this book. The lore was wrong. For example, Data has organic parts in this book. Data has no organic parts with this. And again, I'm going to try to do an individual video for this. The next one I read was book number 2, The Peacekeepers. I enjoyed the plot of this one a lot more. It still wasn't super great, but I did enjoy it at least, and it was much, much better than Ghost Ship, which was just perfectly cheesy. Again, some of the aspects with the characters were incorrect, but overall I really did enjoy this. Another book I read was The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I'm a huge Grady Hendrix fan. I just love Grady Hendrix. I've read almost everything that he has written, with the exception of the one about Kung Fu movies, which doesn't interest me, so I'm probably never going to read that one. And a really old novella called Satan Loves You, which I have never been able to find. And I finally, Shawn D. Standfast, found a Moby of that, and so he sent that to me 2 days ago, so I'm very excited to read that. But anyways, Final Girl Support Group. This is about a group of girls who are the sole survivor of a murder massacre, and each one of the girls had received a movie deal for their story, and the movies in the book parallel real life horror movies from the 80s and the 90s. So this was very fun, just like all of his other books are. However, since it was written before Horror Store and only just published last year, it's not as good as his more recent ones. For example, We Sold Our Souls, or My Best Friend's Exorcism, or the Southern Girls Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires. Did I say that correctly? So it's not quite as good as those, but it is still really, really good. And especially if you're a Grady Hendrix fan, you don't want to miss this one. Another book I read was another buddy read with my friends Belle and Sandy. Did I mention that I buddy read The Final Girl Support Group with Belle and Sandy? I don't remember now. But anyways, I read this with them as well. Goblin by Josh Malerman. I'm not really a Josh Malerman fan. I've never read anything he's written before. None of his books have sounded interesting to me so far, but this one really did. I really enjoyed this. It's a series of shorter stories that all take place in this one town, and all the stories tie in together at the end. And some of the stories I really, really liked, and some of the stories were mediocre. But overall, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I loved the way he tied it in at the end. Another book I read was Dark Night of the Soul by Kitty Thomas. This is an erotica novel, and Kitty Thomas is kind of my go-to for erotica. This one is different than her other novels. The, erotica element is the same as it is in all of these kinds of books, but the setting was fantastic. It was phenomenal. I loved the setting. It's a far future Earth where something has happened, and both day and night are 3 months apiece. So you have 3 months of daylight, and then you have 3 months of darkness. And the population of humanity has been greatly reduced. So instead of countries where humans are just sprawling all over the planet, it's been reduced down to small city-states. And each city-state is being ruled by a vampire. And I just thought the setting was fantastic. I loved the world she created for this in all of the outside elements. But the erotica in it was not to my taste. She's done better erotica portions, in my opinion. Another book I read was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, or Gillian Flynn. I'm not sure which one it is. This book was okay. I gave this a 3 stars. I liked it. But I became disenchanted with her writing the longer I read the book. In the beginning, I thought the writing was really good, but it seemed, I don't know, I can't even explain what happened. It was just like the more I read, the less I liked her writing. The plot was pretty good, and I did not see the twist at the end. I didn't get it, so that's always a good thing when a thriller can fool you. Another book I read was Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I bet he read this with Scott Danielson. This is the first in a trilogy. Scott and I were going to read all 3 of these, but we put these aside because Shawn D. Standfast decided he was going to do a future history project. If you don't know anything about that, I'll have a link to Shawn's video about that down in my descriptions. But it's about a year-long event where we're reading all of the future history books and all of those written by other authors that tie into it within this approximately 1-year period. So I'm actually having a lot of fun with that. So we haven't got to the Foundation books yet, so I still need to read the other 2 in this trilogy. Another book I read was Rosemary's Baby with Ira Levin. This was another buddy read with Shawn D. Standfast. I absolutely love this book. This was fantastic. This was a 5-star read. It was amazing. I just absolutely love it. Can't say enough good things about this, and I'll try to do an individual video where I talk about this book. Another book I read was Deevolution or Deevolution, I'm not sure which, by Max Brooks. This was another buddy read with my friend John. I did like this book, but I had some problems with the format. I probably better tell you what it's about. It's about a group of people who are not really the types of characters who should be living in the wilderness, who decide to purchase cabins and live in the wilderness. But they want all of their city comforts with them, so the homes are more modern and have a lot of technology within them. However, there is a tribe of Bigfoot in the area who are not pleased with the people moving into their territory, and it doesn't go well. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but I had some problems with the formatting. Again, I'll try to talk about this in its own video. And another buddy read with my friend John, No Exit by Taylor Adams. I really enjoyed this book. I thought this book was a really good time. I loved the setting. The setting is a blizzard, and the main character in the book has to pull over and take shelter in a rest stop. And there is a killer at this rest stop. And of course, she doesn't know who the killer is. So I did enjoy it. I had a problem with this book. I thought it was fine until the epilogue. I thought there should have been no epilogue. The book should have just ended and stayed the way it was without the epilogue. Again, I'll try to do an individual video where I talk more about this book. Another book I read, which was another buddy read with my friend Belle, is Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. Years ago, I read Twilight, and I did like Twilight. I wasn't over the moon about it, and I liked it, but not enough to read the rest of the series. And then a few years ago, maybe 8 years ago or so, I did watch the movies, and I did like the movies. And since I enjoyed Twilight, I was curious about this book, which is Twilight from Edward's point of view. So I bought it. It is rather long, and it feels rather long. It is not good. I did not like this. I did not enjoy it. It was very drawn out, And Edward, quite frankly, is a pompous, arrogant, irresponsible, and rash little punk, quite frankly. Did not enjoy this book at all. Then right after I read Midnight Sun, Bella and I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes with Suzanne Collins. If you don't know, it's a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy. It is about President Snow, kind of like an origin story or how he got where he is. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Having read Midnight Sun and this book back to back, the difference in the writing was amazing. Where Midnight Sun is not good and Stephanie Meyers isn't the best author in the world, Suzanne Collins, fabulous author. This was great. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. In fact, I enjoyed it so much, I decided that I had to read the Hunger Games trilogy. So I now have the Hunger Games trilogy, and I'll be reading that soon. Okay, another book I read is Marigold by Troy James Weaver. This is a book called flash fiction. I've never heard of flash fiction, did not know it was a thing. But every page is very short. As you can see, there's not that many words per page. And it kind of reads like poetry, but it's not poetry. It's about a depressed man who has a job he does not like, but a wife he really loves. And it's not a romance in any way, shape, or form, but he does reference his wife and how much he loves her in here. And I thought, although I think this is very good and it's definitely worth reading, the style of writing is not to my taste. He says crude things in here, and the way he phrases things is not the kind of phrasing that I enjoy. The closest comparison I have is Charles Bukowski. If you have read any of his poetry, which I do like Charles Bukowski, but he is crude at times, and I don't enjoy that aspect. And the same could be said with Troy James Weaver. It's the same thing. However, it is still really good, and I still did really enjoy that. And also, Troy James Weaver lives in Wichita, Kansas, which is only 2 hours away from where I live. So he is essentially a local author. So I definitely felt extra compelled to read his books. Then I read a second one by him called Wichita Stories, which I enjoyed a lot more. I liked this quite a lot. This is apparently some excerpts, or some little stories, I should say, from his life. And again, it has a bit of a poetic feel, but not nearly as much as Marigold. And I liked this a lot better. There is still some crudeness in here, but it's better than it is in Marigold. And I really liked this. I think he's got 2 other books out, which I do intend to read also. I definitely intend to read everything he puts out. Another book I read was The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. And I say I read this, but actually I only read half of it. I had to put it down after I got halfway through, even though it's so thin. I didn't care for this book at all. I didn't like the main character. I wasn't sure where this book was heading, but it was kind of gross, and the character is clearly a serial killer or something to that effect. Definitely some disturbing mental issues happening there. And I was just bored, and I just didn't care, and I didn't like the character. So I put it down, and I actually looked up spoilers for the book, so I do know what the big twist was. So I can see why some people would enjoy this book, but it was not for me. I didn't care for it at all. Another book I read was Finding Normal, Sex, Love, and Taboo in Our Hyperconnected World by Alexa Soulis-Ray. Did not like this book. This was another DNF. I expected this to be more informational than it was. This is literally accounts of this woman getting online and having conversations with people who live outside of the box in the romantic area department. And this was nothing surprising or shocking to me. I thought it was it was not an in-depth dive into these areas. And that's what I wanted. That's what I expected. I even assumed that there would be some professionals weighing in on this subject, like some psychiatrists or some psychologists or some scientists or something, but it's not. I read the first 50 pages and then I started skipping around in the book and reading 20 pages or so here and there. It's not good. I don't recommend this at all. I'm going to put this in a little free library because I didn't care for it. Another book I read was Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. Again, I read about half of this book and had to put it down. It started out very, very strong. The first 5 pages are amazing, and I was absolutely intrigued, and I did not have any idea where this book was going. But I did not like the style of writing. I didn't care for the author's or for the character's thought process at all. I couldn't relate to this character. I thought she was a terrible human being. And I had to actually look up the author because I thought perhaps the author was belittling girls who claim that they had been taken advantage of in a sexual way by their college professors. I thought she was making statements that those are false accusations. So I had to look up the author. Turns out that's not what the author was saying. I did understand better what she was trying to do here after I read what the author had to say about her book. However, this is not my kind of book. I did not enjoy it. I got about halfway through it. It's about a female college professor who's married. Her husband has had affairs with his young students, and she becomes obsessed with another professor who is married. I didn't care for it. It wasn't for me, but somebody might like this. Another book I read was The Last Wish by, you know what? I've forgotten how to pronounce this author's name, and it's nothing like it appears. So anyway, everybody's probably familiar with this by now, but I really like The Witcher. I watched the 2 seasons that are out of it. Absolutely love it. I'm completely in love with it. Love Henry Cavill as The Witcher. Don't like Henry Cavill in any other role. He's way too clean cut and goody two shoes for my taste, but as The Witcher, my goodness, I could faint. So I did read The Last Wish, which is essentially all of the stories that take place in season 1, with the exception of the Beauty and the Beast story, which is in this book, but it is actually in season 2 in the show. So yeah, absolutely loved this. I'm going to try to talk about this in its own video again. So yeah, really, really loved this. Gave this 4 stars. And then I read several Kindle books, which I'll put the covers over here on the right. I read the first 5 books in the Dresden Files. I absolutely loved every single one of them. They are all 4 stars for me. Love the narrator. The narrator is James Marston, I believe is his name. He is the actor who played Spike in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and in Angel. Fantastic. I love him as a narrator. I would definitely read other audiobooks where he is the narrator. So book number 1 is called Stormfront. Book number 2 is called Full Moon. Book number 3 is called Grave Peril. Book number 4 is called Summer Night. And book number 5 is called Death Masks. Loved all of them. They were fantastic. Another book I read was The Boy Who Cried Wolf. It was written by Cassandra Peterson and another author, because Cassandra Peterson is an actress, not really an author. So I'm sure the other author was helping her with her books. But if you don't know who she is, she portrays used to be a very popular and well-known character named Elvira. I don't know how many people know who she is now, but she was very popular in the 80s and the early 90s, and I absolutely loved Elvira. My mother was a huge Elvira fan, and I think that kind of rubbed off on me. She's got 3 of these little novellas. They're all about 150 pages or so. And I've read 1, and I still have 2 left to read, which I think I'm going to save and read over Halloween. Another book I read was Frozen Hell by John W. Campbell. Loved this book. It was so good. It's actually a longer version of a previous shorter story he wrote called Who Goes There? And they found his original version of it, and it's been published, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. And then I read 10 Past Now, which is a short story collection by Damian Lutz, who is an amazing author. He independently publishes his books, so I suggest you check him out. He's got a novel called Immanujaku out, which is very, very good. And he has another book called The Lens, which I didn't like as much, but the technology in it was absolutely fascinating. And then, of course, he has this short story collection. I had read it before, but I reread it again for New World's November. And then I read a few romance/erotica type novels. The first one was called Dangerous Temptations. Another one was called Mandy and the Tentacle Monster. Now, Mandy and the Tentacle Monster was hilarious. I absolutely loved it. It's very poorly written, but it is so much fun. It is so much fun that if you like that kind of a book, I would definitely recommend it. It was about 220 pages, and I liked that one so much that I read the sequel called Chasing Cthulhu. That one was terrible. Didn't like it at all. Didn't like where she took the story. Didn't like what she did with the character Mandy. Didn't like what she did with the new female character. Didn't like anything about it. So it was not good. Then I also read one called Her Wicked Ways, which was an actual romance, and it was good. But I don't like romance anymore. I'm just not a romance reader, but I wanted to try one just to see. I liked it, but it was not my thing, and it just seemed very juvenile to me. It was something that maybe that would have appealed to me when I was in high school. And yeah, it was good. It was well done, you know, but I think the romance was too young for me. I think is what the problem was there. Okay, now I do believe that is all the books I've read in the last 5 months. So I do plan to come back and do another video where I talk about my reading plans, because I actually have quite a few reading plans this year, and I kind of want to talk about that. And then I also the other night recorded 6 book haul videos. I had this mountain of books, I'll show it right here, that I've purchased in the last 8 months or so that I never hauled in any videos. And so I did them all back to back in the middle of the night. I was exhausted by the time I was done, but you can look out for those videos too.